Welcome, everybody. We are here today, and I apologize. I actually should have asked you even before we started this how to pronounce your name, so I don't want to butcher it. How would you pronounce your name?
Vasily Giannutsas.
Vasily. I'll do the first name only.
That's fine.
Just to save a little bit of time. But yeah, so we want to thank everybody for tuning in to these various sessions. Some quick rules of order and things. The chat is open. I will be monitoring that as the moderator and passing off any questions throughout the session as they come up or near the end. So definitely feel free to use the chat, say hello and welcome and everything. All of these sessions are being recorded and we've got a YouTube playlist available. So if you're watching this after the fact, awesome. If you're watching this during, but you're not sure if you're gonna be able to catch all of it, not a problem whatsoever. It will all be recorded at the same links, which are also embedded in each of the sessions in the online schedule. So my name is Tim Owens. I'm the Virtual Visti or Visti Virtual Conference Chair. And I'm happy to pass off the mic to Vasily, who's going to talk to us about virtual environments. We heard this morning about Second Life, but you know, the term virtual comes up in a lot of different ways, right? Whether it be Minecraft, whether it be virtual reality and things of that nature. So I'm really excited about this presentation and I'll pass it off to you, Vasily.
Hi, thanks, Tim. So Vasily, my students call me Mr. Geo, and well, if you know me in virtual world, people call me Blue. So I've been around for Visti for quite some time. Doing virtual environments, we have a professional learning community. It is based in Second Life, but we also branch out into other virtual worlds as well. But I'm going to get into that a little bit later. But you know, let's start things off trying to figure out where people are at. What comes to mind? Oh my. I messed up just a little bit. There we go. What comes to mind when you think of virtual reality? I think that's something that we have a lot of mixed messages going on. So go ahead and type some things in the comments, if you will. But try and think about what are some main staple examples. Like when you think of the word virtual reality, what kind of images pop up for you? I know it can be something that's talked about very often, but it's not really talked into much great detail. And I want to clear up some misconceptions before we kind of move forward. So even though I don't have the comments down there and I can't see it just yet, but
I'm watching. I can chime in just for myself as we wait for some other people to chime in too. I have an Oculus Quest, so I think of Facebook and Oculus when I think of virtual reality.
Yes, very, very contemporary, modern view. Good.
I see people mentioning VR goggles, Neo in the Matrix, and cyberspace.
Yes.
Google Maps, Ready Player One, reality, so it's real. That's what we're.
All right, good. Well, we're moving into that right direction. But especially when I talk to my co-workers, my other fellow teachers, when I talk to them about virtual reality and virtual learning, virtual environments, they're all kind of like, ooh, and skepticism. And of course, the Matrix always pops up. So we're just connected into the world. We're not really moving and doing too much. It's a very 90s point of view, very popular movie series. But I mean, the more modern take is, someone mentioned Ready Player One, and I agree. I think this is definitely a more modern, contemporary look. You have the VR goggles, you have a headset, and you're kind of able to move around. You're not strapped down. And I think that's something that just in a span of 20 years, we kind of changed how we saw virtual reality. But virtual reality is not anything new. It's been around for quite some time. But I did want to talk about what is the technical term that is virtual reality. And as Wiki puts it, it is known as also immersive multimedia, but also a computer simulated reality where computer technology replicates an environment, real or imagined, and it simulates a user's physical presence and environment to allow for that interaction. It's going to create a sensory experience. So I would like to say and or in here, but sight, touch, hearing, and or smell. I don't know any VR that does smell just yet, but maybe in the next 10, 20, 30 years, we might have something very interesting. But thinking about that, it is artificially created, and it is going to affect a sensory experience between sight, touch, hearing, and smell. But at least let's focus on sight, touch, and hearing, because smelling is way out the ballpark for the time being. So when we look at that, what does that exactly feel like? right now, this popped up on my, I was looking through Instagram and someone was talking about the coronavirus and someone posted this Jetsons picture. So looking at how we are in the future, what we're currently doing is that we're all communicating through video phones, right? Home office, online classes are now through a television, telemedicine, video call. These are all things that seemed completely out of the norm until we were all thrusted upon it in March, where everything had to close down. We had to look to the digital medium to do things. If you see on the right-hand side is a Star Trek with holodeck. That is definitely the master expectation for what we want virtual reality to be, where we can totally simulate it completely in a room. But right now we'll have to settle with, building things digitally in a virtual space, in a virtual environment. On the bottom right, you'll see a picture of Animal Crossing. And someone has rebuilt the holodeck there as well. So it may not be photorealistic right now, but you can see that we're slowly getting there, day by day, year by year. And I talk about this because that there is hope for this really great promise of virtual reality. And I don't want to talk about virtual reality that is seeming very far away and is out of grasp, because it's not. It's possible. And I want you to know that it is. So we're going to take a little trip back because we have to look at our history. If you look at the top, maybe some of you might know what those are. It's probably one of the first instances of a realized virtual reality headset. I'll give you guys a couple of moments to think about if I have any technology history buffs out there. And I don't know if I'm having anybody on Google Chat. Nope.
No takers yet. We'll see. I actually had no idea, so I've never seen it.
So this photo was taken in 1968. And this is Bob Sproul, my apologies. And this is his HDMI split screen that was called the Sword of Damocles. And so this was a university student working on having pretty much wearing a television on your head, and then you had one input button and that could play or pause the video. So it kind of is alluding to those pieces where we want to be immersed into something, where we are taking ourselves out of a classroom and into another reality. I don't recall what video they were watching on those glasses, but that moves us forward into what we're now looking at. I have another history thing for you guys. Do you guys know who that is? He was quite the talk 5 years ago, but in technology ages, that seems like a decade ago. Or I should say a century ago sometimes. I feel it's important that we preserve the history, even though virtual reality's history it has been very short. It's something that we need to look back on and really feel the movers and shakers of the technology that shaped what we're talking about now. And so if you haven't guessed already, this is Paul Malecki out of California State University. This was taken in 2012, and this is when he successfully used Kickstarter to crowdfund the Oculus Rift. And so currently he's now a multi-millionaire, and you guys and you talked about it already, he had sold the Oculus to Facebook in March of 2014. And of course, there's been lots of copycats since then. But this is the one that started our contemporary VR revolution that is really making the staples of what we conceive to be virtual reality these days. And so this is what it looked like if you had got the Oculus Swift SDK. You do have that strap, you're plugged in, and you have lots of cords coming out of the back there. And you had to have this Oculus piece plugged into a computer. You had to have a pretty high-end computer to do this. I know they say gaming PCs is the staple language now, but that was not the case. You had to have a really nice machine to do all this, to do SDK on the development kit. But virtual reality was just in its humble beginnings. And just in this very short span of 5, 6, 7 years, we have this smooth streamlinedness. In the top right corner, you have the Oculus Go. In the left, you have Oculus Quest, and the person that is wearing right now is wearing the Oculus Rift S that came out in March 2019. And so since Lucky came out, since Mr. Lucky had come out with the Oculus Rift, it has been a very cool 8 years, and we now have minimized the amount of codes coming out. We have streamlined it. It can be connected to a computer, but it can also be standalone. Like, this is stuff that was inconceivable beforehand. Even Ready Player One has people with headsets that are still connected by wires. But that just shows a little bit of Moore's Law, right? How technology advances every 5, 10, 20 years. They get faster. It gets more compact. And so, if anything, virtual reality is that in a nutshell. But why am I talking to you? Why about this? Why does Lucky matter? Why does a brief history in virtual reality matter? Why is it significant? Why should we care? Things that we tell our students all the time. But it helps us to know how far we have come and to appreciate the evolution of technology. Even as small as it has been, within just a short span of time, we've gone from being hooked up to a computer with lots of wires from the Matrix and to now doing something more streamlined where we don't have all those wires hanging off us. And so it helps us gain appreciation for that evolution, as well as what has changed and what has stayed. And a lot of the problems with virtual reality in the beginning was of course, motion sickness, but that's been fixed with speeded up processing, right? Also, the cables. You couldn't really turn around and do full virtual reality without having to worry about cables all the time. So it took you out of that. It took you out of that immersive experience, that definition of, being simulated in something and it's taking your senses. So also the reason why we talk about history in tech ed, as a tech ed teacher, we talk about how it is shaping our future from the past to our current present and possibly into the future. We have to look at it from all aspects, that we have to be honest with the fact that all kinds of technology is wrapped and has shaped our future. It has been embedded within our culture and how it affects our experiences, from us as adults using it professionally right now, doing this virtual conference, to our students who were learning virtually online for the bulk of the fourth quarter and possibly into the first semester of the beginning new year. But each day we're getting closer and closer to where when technology will fuel the future, it also fuels the generations to come. And it's really important that we take notice of those important things. And virtual reality is going to be those things. And it's not just virtual technology as a piece of technology. It's also what it can do, what its possibilities are. And I think that's really what I want to talk about with you guys, because technology is all around us. We can't really escape it. So I like having facts and figures. I love infographics, if you don't know. And so Pew Research Center and Common Sense Media have given out some early statistics of what happened during COVID-19. Common Sense Media is a 2019 census, and so we are comparing the different results here. We talk about having virtual parties, social gatherings. What we're doing right now, some people are watching a play or something that was live streamed through an app. So would you consider a live stream concert virtual reality? It's going to possibly be on YouTube. You can full screen it. You can put it up there. And it's going to be live streamed. It's not something that's recorded, but it's something that it puts you in the moment. It's live TV, like the news. The news can be live. Lots of people were doing this. My left side screen usually just focuses on adults. But my right side screen from 2019, this is looking at how our tweens and teens are doing. Looking at that demographic or the age data and seeing how much time they're spending on their screens. And we're looking at about 4 to 5 hours and then 7 to 8 hours. Goodness knows that's probably increased because they've been stuck at home all day and they haven't had to actually leave their houses to go to a school. So let's look about what all the different activities. Number one, we have watching TVs and videos. And then number two is playing games. You'll find that social media is a little bit lower on that list. They're not really social mediaizing. It's pretty much just looking at curated content. I would say people in middle school and or high school will most likely have an Instagram or Snapchat account more than they would have a Facebook account. And I guess they would have Twitter, but it's just browsing. Twitter is the new newspaper. And so they're looking at it and they're getting their daily news feed. It's quick and easy. It's fast. But I will say that even my young 10-year-old, the majority of the time he spends is watching videos, and then it's playing games and trying to do what they did and then learning from it as well. So it is a series of failures and retrials, trying to do it the right way. So we look about this because when we talk about virtual reality, virtual learning, it is digital learning. I'm not going to say it's not. They're in the same category. It's in the same program where, because you're simulating learning online. I think my best example would be letters. If you will write a physical email, a physical letter to somebody, that's the real life version. And then my virtual counterpart would be to send an email to somebody. You are doing it digitally. I would say things that are done digitally are done virtually. It takes that experience because it's not pen and paper, it's doing it on the computer. And I think focusing so much on the headsets is not where we need to be at. My other concern is the homework gap. So this, the top section is a cutoff of Common Sense research from 2019, looking at students from higher and lower income and where is the disparity happening. And I have this presentation has all of its links in it. It will be available online. And really looking at 70% of teachers assign homework that acquire access to the internet. Yet 5 million families with school-age children do not have access to this high speed at home. So what happens to kids with those life circumstances that don't allow easy access to all the internet has to offer? It is unfair. It is such an inequity between our students, especially from looking at East Coast, Midwest, and the West Coast. It ranges greatly on what's available. Textbooks. Are they new textbooks? Are they 5 years old? Are they 10 years old, 20 years old? Things that are found within school buildings all the time. When students can just watch videos. My nephew I showed him an article and he's like, that's too long. He'd rather watch a video. And that's what happens. They are just consumers of the digital media. I will say some people have taken advantage and have been their own content creators. Not everybody does that. So looking at what the research and the science tells us, here are some experts on education. And this is from Education Next. And this is looking at, did America's schools rise to the coronavirus challenge? And this is affording to these two people, Michael Cashley, he's the executive director of the Council of Great City Schools, and Chris Stewart, who is a chief executive also of Brightbeam, which is a nonprofit network of education activists. They had two very different messages, but they all still had underlining themes. Those themes were some that went along these lines. Michael Cashley said that schools went to extraordinary lengths to serve their students. Yes, I will totally agree with this. They did. But Chris Stewart was like, nope, it was a memorable, miserable failure with the potential to change parental expectations forever. And I have these little excerpts of what I got from the article strongly enough. So Michael Cashley was very positive, talking about what school districts had done, trying to provide food for students that had that were having food insecurities, trying to help students have internet when they didn't. They retrofitted buses with hotspots. Like, these were things that were done, but along the line, we did drop the ball. Virtual digital learning was not supposed to be thrusted as it was. It was very happenstance. It happened at a time of crisis, in a time of emergency. And so I will say in Virginia, in my district, we have the majority of students have a Chromebook, but a Chromebook will have access to the Schoology, to Blackboard, to the different learning management systems that we have, but doesn't always have access to all the learning resources. They can't run the different systems and applications that could be useful and beneficial to this time of learning, where that it can't be done in face-to-face physical schools. And so I'm not going to read those responses to you. Hopefully you will have a chance. You can pause the screen during this time and read that. But again, talking about how the learning had changed and how people had to adapt. It is again a leading toward that resilience and grit that students need to have. and teachers and school teachers themselves. I think schools need to take a long, hard look at what we're teaching and how we can fit it better for the 21st century. Because we talk about 21st century skills when we aren't really implementing them. And I think that's a real crime in themselves. And then here are some teacher perspectives on, so when I, again, say virtual learning, I talk about digital learning, how are we learning? And so this is one part where we have been expected to do all these things, looking at teacher responsibilities and how our role has changed, how we've had things added. I'm not going to go on a soap box where teachers need to be paid more, but, you know, look at it from perspective. In Asia, they do treat teachers better. They do get paid more. But thinking about the expectation, I had to worry about HIV. I had to worry about administering EpiPens. I had to look at administering life-saving technologies, looking at spending money for my own supplies. Like, these are things that should be done and handled by the school, or we're the emergencies. We're always the Band-Aids. So trying to figure out where we're coming from and where we're going to go forward. And then this was one perspective. My flip of the coin is Frances. She is a tech-savvy teacher in New York City, and she utilizes Bitmoji and to implement a blended learning model. If you watched the video previously, blended learning is very popular for online learning, is medium. And so she has created a virtual classroom, if you will, in Bitmoji, and helps to create that classroom environment to help promote learning for our students. But I like this quote that she has here, that technology will never replace great teachers, but technology in the hands of great teachers is transformational, by George Couros. And I think that is really where we need to be. Technology is not going to be the Band-Aid. Technology is going to be a seamless thing that we need to be thinking about as we learn forward from what has happened this past school year. And so, again, I've put all these links online and available to us, but let's look at these next set of pictures. Can you tell me who's doing virtual learning and who is not?
And there may be a bit of a delay. There's about a 15-second delay from the live stream. So
I really wanted to do a slow reveal of these logos, but it just wasn't working in Google Slides. So
I imagine a lot of people will be doing virtual learning this fall.
Oh, I know, right?
Whether they're prepared for it or not, right?
Very true. But on the top left-hand corner, we have some boys. One's on a computer and one's on a phone. I have on the top right, we have people utilizing a Google Cardboard. On the bottom left, we have a Second Life learning experience. This was from professional development session in Second Life. And the bottom right might be new to some people, but it's called immersion. Well, how about your opinion, Tim? Do you think, which ones do you think are learning virtually?
It's a great question. Out of those four options?
Yep.
I would definitely say, I guess for me, virtual, when I think of it, I think of virtual reality. So I definitely think like Google Cardboard, maybe the Second Life option. I'm not familiar with immersion. So.
Okay. I figure that response will be very similar to what people will type. But I will tell you that all these pictures are showing what virtual learning looks like. Whether learning through devices, learning through digital medium, it's simulating them being in the classroom. I would say the people in the top right in the Google Cardboard, they're probably doing a field trip to the Washington Zoo or looking at famous landmarks or monuments in DC, Washington, DC. Top left is boys on their phones and on the computers. They're all learning. You just can't see what it is that they're doing. But again, they're on there and they're being exposed and they're having digital and virtual experiences because they're not reading a book, but one could be looking at an ebook. One could be watching a video on ABCs. I imagine that younger child might be doing such thing, maybe ABC Mouse, if you will. Bottom left, yes, in virtual learning, well, you have people traditionally talking, you have people in a classroom setting, and that is definitely a very traditional image. But immersion, if you don't know about immersion is a teaching tool to teach new teachers how to do classroom management within a school type setting. But it's also is being retrofitted to create a learning environment for students so that they can learn for the upcoming fall learning. So it is really cool what they've done with it. So people would be these individual avatars, and then you would be the teacher teaching them, and they would see what you're doing. So it is all these instances, all aspects of virtual learning. And so I want us to be familiar with a term that some of you guys might if you're in computer science, but ubiquitous. So ubiquitous is primarily a technology related to ubiquitous computing or UbiComp is a concept in software engineering and computer science where computing is made to appear anytime and everywhere. In contrast to desktop computing, ubiquitous computing can occur in any device, at any location, and in any format. So looking at that Internet of Things, seeing how we have smart devices, whether that can be a smartwatch while we're carrying on an iPad or a cell phone, and it's linked up to different things, linked up to our looking at our professional lives, hooked up to a computer, hooked up to a car, an intelligent home that can control the lights or the AC. Maybe you have it connected to a coffee maker and you can just push a button, it'll make coffee. Maybe talking to your Alexa or your Siri, and you could get information that way. Those are forms of ubiquitous computing where pretty much using technology anywhere, making it available to using it at any time. I think that's a more updated form. But how about try applying that term to learning? What do you think that looks like? Ubiquitous learning that can be defined as an everyday learning environment that is supported by mobile and embedded computers, maybe wireless networks in our everyday lives. It is aimed at to provide learners with contact interaction anytime and anywhere. If you look at the bottom left, it's a modal for connected learning. It's showing that it connected learning form of student based learning, student-centered, and it's driven by principles of being interest-powered, production-centered, or project-based learning. Production-centered is PBL. Peer-supported, so that they are on networks with their peers, with their other fellow students, that they have a shared purpose, it's academically oriented, and it's openly networked, meaning that they have access to all these resources, whether it's a physical library or a digital library, as some library media centers might have to do. These are ways that all resources could be video resources, whether it's PBS or YouTube, trying to find content, learn the content. Khan Academy can do that too. Videos are being the new way to teach. And again, if I'm going to teach on the fall online, I'm going to have 6 to 7 classes. 3 or 4 of them are going to be of the same subject content. So if I have an engineering class, I could have a video session for every class period, where it's just or a video, televideo where I'm live talking with them, or it could be a video lesson where they go to the lesson, they pick it up, they watch it, and then they do the activity. Like, I think we are kind of undercutting what that looks like in our future. And so ubiquitous learning can happen everywhere, from at a home, at a museum, at a McDonald's. They have free Wi-Fi, beach, bus stop around town, at the library. But I also like to add in nature itself. Nature is a huge teacher, and we need students to really see what's going on, because I think there's a slight disconnect between our students and what is possible. But as a teacher and a concerned educator, how am I going to do all virtual learning or digital learning? And sure, this term should be very familiar. If you are in tech ed, you have something called bootstrapping, or there's also the bootstrap educator, where you're coming up with things on the fly, and it's either miraculous sometimes, some of the things that happen. And so we are trying to find ways to make virtual reality possible, or virtual learning something that can be done by everyone. And when we talk about bootstrapping, so one of these is called Neopod, and the other one is called Google Cardboard, fueled by Google Expeditions, from that previous slide that I had. But Neopod has some video lessons, science, history. It has some virtual tours, but I will say Google Cardboard with Google Expeditions has a great deal many more, like virtual field trips. It's allowing your students to see something in real life or a video or at least experience of it in a virtual reality type setting. And look at that Google Cardboard. You just need cardboard, and they have plenty of free templates online where you can cut, hot glue it, and you can make it. Whether you are making this or your students could make it at home, it's something that is possible and they can do it. So don't trust that effort. If they've ever bought off of anything on Amazon, I guarantee you they could cut off an Amazon box and make it into a Google Cardboard. So you gotta be a little thrifty, and a little creative innovation never hurt anybody. Creative arts and crafts, if you will, but with a purpose, of course. But other examples of virtual reality that can be done. There are these interactive worksheets that you use a phone, you can use an application, and it will create virtual graphics. So if you look at this heart, if you hold your phone up to it using an application, you could push, it will show it beating, it will show the veins moving. If you click different buttons, it will maybe do a cross section of it, and it will label and do word parts on it. There's DNA strands right there with Class VR. These are free worksheets. They also have a lot of the worksheets that you can pay for. And then on the right-hand side is Lay AR. I actually got these worksheets off of our ISTE, for the ISTE site. But these are also, you can hold up your phone using the Lay AR application. And this creates a kind of augmented reality situation. So I did want to make a difference that true in the sense that virtual reality is something with the headset and or with some kind of controller input. Augmented reality is when you bring a digital overlay, or it's going to be some kind of visualization that appears when you look at it. Think about QR codes a little bit. You have a sheet of paper, it has a code on it, and then something will pop up, whether it be a website or possibly a digital model of something. And down at the bottom are other great resources that have simulations, lessons, plans, and a great deal of lots of resources to be useful. Concord Consortium, We Are Teachers, the Girls Collaborative Project, Edutopia, NASA, and PBS. Those are all my go-tos for looking for resources for educational things, especially within the virtual learning that we've had to do this past school year. But it is possible. There again, all of my links will be in my webpage. But it makes me wonder that I think I get a lot of weird glances at my school because I was this person talking about all this virtual stuff and how can we integrate technology into learning, and they're like, well, we just do it all without having to do all the technology stuff, and that they might use Blackboard or Schoology to have them upload assignments to save paper. But we can take it a step forward, and I think growing up, these were the dirty words. These were the being a nerd or a geek or a gamer or a techie. These were all things that had negative connotations. But I mean, nowadays we're watching the world change around me and how this has changed. Now, these words have changed for students, but I mean, we still got to change the stigma of tech ed for some students, for the minority groups, and for the females, but to incorporate them into what we're doing. But also, it is changing. And don't get me wrong, I get more awkward stares and accusatory glances from not my students, but my coworkers and my fellow teachers who are like, so you do all this computer stuff. It must be easy for you to teach virtually online. And I'm like, no, it's a hard nut to crack because our student base is not really used to it. I will say the younger kids going through elementary and middle school will be a little bit more receptive to it. But, that's where that conversation comes from when we talk about digital immigrants and digital natives, how the majority of teachers teaching are digital immigrants. They didn't grow up with technology. They've had to learn it on their own. They've had to be brought into the tech circle. Whereas students are growing up with tablets and iPads, and they're digital natives growing up with that technology. And so these types of terms are something you want to be called because it means that I'm good with my phone. I'm good at gaming. What can you do? It has a full 360 view on these things. But I was also someone who looked to the future and was like, technology is going to shape everything that we're doing. I'm still going to stick with it. And I am a technology teacher and an innovator. And I'm also a futurist, someone that looks towards where technology is and what it's doing. And that's virtual reality falls into that category of where do we see it working within the future. And again, we'll play Guess Who. So opening up the question to to the chat, do you guys know who these people are? They're very contemporary. They're still alive, even though they're black and white photos. These people are still alive, and they are helping shaking and moving our society as we see it. I know there's that delay.
I see thinking and typing in the comments. See if anybody knows.
I feel like I've been talking a mile a minute. Please feel free to interrupt me, Tim, if there's questions in there.
Not necessarily questions. I think there have been some really good discussions already about equity, right? Because when we talk about devices, when we talk about even internet access, which somebody brought up in the comments, I think it really brings into question how much can be done offline, how much can be done without expensive devices. And I like that you touched on how virtual reality doesn't have to be $500 headsets, right? And so,
no, it doesn't.
You know, when we think about like internet, that gets a little bit harder. Sure. Karen is guessing that the one person might be Mika.
I think, okay.
So the gentleman on the left is so familiar. Kaku?
Yes. Kaku. So you do have that. Michio Kaku.
Okay, nice.
But the other one might be a little more obscure. If you have been following Engadget or any tech circle, technology history, she's definitely someone you want to be looking at. But let's talk about the person you did guess, Michio Kaku. He is a theoretical physicist. He is a world-renowned author, and he's also a futurist, someone who looks to the future. And I feel like all of his predictions are very positive, and all technologies develop under ideal circumstances, meaning that if everything went correctly, if we didn't have any problems, whether it was based on political, geographical, or resource issues, these are ideal situations. And he does put virtual reality as in something that will be a teacher, whether it is teaching in public schools, as in a Ready Player One. If anyone has actually read the book of Ready Player One, it actually talks about going to a virtual online public school through virtual reality headsets. But the virtual reality headsets themselves were something that were given out by those schools to each student. So they would be given that technology, as in, we give our students Chromebooks, maybe the next step would be a better form of technology. But of course, money will be the driver for that. And he has a documentary called Next World that talks about what life will be like in 2030 and 2050. And this came out in 2015. So I'm sure some of that might have changed a little bit. But he puts virtual reality into all aspects of what we're doing, and not just virtual reality, also augmented reality as well, blended reality, where if anyone's following Google Lens or the Windows Lens, Windows Microsoft is coming out with their own version of augmented reality that will pretty much put a computer without having all that bit on you. It's microscopic, and you can still like type out an email. You could web search, you could watch videos just by looking at any surface. And it's some pretty fascinating technology that's coming out that they're doing with research and development for it. But also maybe the person that you weren't quite familiar with, the other picture, was Nani Delapana. She is by Engadget, by Wired magazine. She is known as the godmother of virtual reality. And she originally is a documentary filmmaker and educator in her beginnings. But she's taken virtual reality and she's making it, allowing us to have more invested experiences within it. So this is where that immersiveness comes in. We talk about virtual reality being an immersive technology. She wants to have immersive journalism. So that means is that we're having news stories, but they're virtual reality experiences where we can, where people are able to experience the story. So reading a story on a newspaper, on a website, on a Twitter feed, or maybe just watching a video of it, you get a sense of what's going on, but to impart emotion, to build empathy for what is happening, for a cause, for a situation that has happened, virtual reality seems to be that ticket that will take us there. And so on the bottom right, this is her Hunger in California campaign, where they were talking about how the lines for food banks were so long that they were running out of help, they were running out of food. And one of her researchers was there, and she's gathering audio. And it talks about how this man collapsed into diabetic coma because he didn't get food in time. And so they recreated a virtual space of the surrounding area. They photographed the sidewalk. They had models donated, and they animated it, and they created a virtual experience where people had you can download it off of a website, but it was featured at Sundance 2012, and lots of the stuff that she's working on is very, you know, bringing news stories to life. And you know, this affected people. They were donating money to food banks or donating time. In the top right is an image of Syria, where she was commissioned to do a piece that was this girl talking. It is just a city, just like anybody, just a street where people are selling things. So there's a store, there's on a bike, there are cars, and then all of a sudden a bomb goes off. And so this is putting that reality of you're in a place of high conflict, such as Syria back in 2013, 2014. It brought that war closer. When we talk about that thing, you know, World War II and the Vietnam War, one of the first wars that were broadcasted on television, and it affected people. And they were like, we don't want to do this. This seems incredibly wrong. These are terrible, horrendous tactics that are being played. And, you know, with protests, we were able to stop the Vietnam War. And so ways to bring awareness, to bring people to understand what's going on. On the bottom left is I think it's called the is Macy, and this talks about eyewitness testimonies, telling what happened, and then accurate virtual recreation for crime use that a crime lab could use to look at what was going on. It was a hostage situation, but you know, these are high pressure moments that take things to a new level. And so I think when we talk about virtual learning, I think there's something that's really important. That's what she talks about, is she talks about how real virtual reality can be sometimes. And she talks about a virtual presence or digital presence, where things that we put in the digital virtual sphere or online, it is a part of ourselves going out there. And we can take either certain offense or pride in the things that we do. And so it is real what we feel, and that it can be translated through digital means. And the same thing can be done through learning. How can we translate their stories or what the lesson that we're trying to convey, and to make it relevant and make it engaging? And nothing is more engaging quite like being immersed into a situation, whether that's a historical story, news that is happening, maybe chemistry, maybe being input into in a book that you're reading. You build a virtual set with actors in it, and you guys can act it out, since we can't really do read out louds in a classroom setting, but maybe we could do a read out loud in a Zoom session. We could do that. But creative Zoom uses are definitely on the rise. But I am someone who likes to still look to the future. Well, here are my future thoughts, things that are happening, things that are changing, and things that we need to be aware of. Some of you guys, if you don't know this, Cox is putting something called Gigablast. And they have these series of various commercials where they have these very futuristic type technologies, very well done graphics. But on the top left, we have two pandas playing ping pong. And then if you look at the top right, we can see that just by tapping on his watch, it's revealed that he was playing a Avatar character, or they were playing Avatar. And then if you watch the commercial further, you can see that those two pandas were not even remotely in the same room. He was looking at a video screen. He was on a video wall, actually. Very bottom left, we have a girl with a device that she's picking out a pet. And one of them is a dinosaur, and you'll see in the screenshot next to it is a dinosaur that pops up. And these are all very futuristic type things that don't exactly exist just yet. I would be really stoked to have these exist. But on the right hand side, we have this girl with a monkey. This monkey is actually a robot plush type toy that can walk around and follow her around and talk with her and communicate. And we find at the end of the commercial, it was her grandma on the computer who was talking and making the monkey do these things. And all through the power of very fast internet, right? It's a ad for 5G internet, I'm sure. But I as much as I would love these pieces of technology to exist, it only takes a little bit of time for such things to happen, right? We were showing you guys Star Trek. We were talking about The Matrix. We were talking about Ready Player One, how those things are, how we have aspects of those things right now, where we do have virtual reality headsets, where we do have people playing games online with other people, where we do have robots. They are not as super amazing as this monkey robot, but I mean, we're all getting there. We have robots that can look like human with their facial expressions. We have a robot run by hotels in Japan, only Japan, right? But it is seeing how, again, science fiction, how the fantasy of these things can slowly be turned into the reality, again, with technology advancing and moving forward. There's another futuristic concept that comes out is from Corning. Corning produces glassware products, and they're really shutting their sights on technology innovation. And this is a day in the life of the glass. And I have the video links. This is a video series. There's different videos with different days, and this is just one concept. It really focuses on education and talking about this girl getting ready. She has a mirror that is a smart mirror. She has a very thin tablet. We have interactive surfaces, and again, them going outside. So those bottom two images are students at a physical field trip to a state park, and then when they bring up those screens, they will have the augmented reality situation where there's dinosaurs there, or they could use their tablets to analyze footprints and be told, oh, this is the animal that is. They actually have something like that now with your phone. You can download it, and it can tell you like what kind of plant you have just by analyzing the leaves of a plant. And it works decently. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It works good with full-grown plants. It doesn't really work good with baby plants because the plants of small seedlings are very different from what the full grown selves look like. So again, these are just images of the future. What happens if I told you something that came out just recently, July 18th, 3 days ago? Microsoft unveiled volumetric holograms. That image on the left side of your screen is a 360 image of this guy. It is a volumetric hologram. If you look on the bottom right there, we have Star Wars, Princess Leia right there. We are getting into a virtual reality experience where you are able to scan yourself and present yourself to a virtual sense. So if I can go back, how do I go back? Oh God, there we go. So being able to be somewhere and have these virtual volumetric scans. This is where this comes in. If right here, this dinosaur is not there, but it's a virtual hologram. If you look at these two images, if this medical image right here, there's a physical doctor on the far right-hand side, but that left-hand side, that's a doctor from another city, from another hospital. He telephoned in and his virtual hologram surgery room, and he's consulting with this doctor about this patient. I would definitely recommend watching this video because we're getting there. It's mind-blowing how fast technology is evolving, and I just love being in this field with technology education and being a tech ed teacher, being CTE. I'm engulfed in it. I am a geek and a nerd for it. I love it so much because this is what's happening. Our world is changing so fast. We need to impart this to our students. We need to try and teach them to be able to adapt, to learn the things that they need to learn so that they can be successful in that 21st century learning skill. Because this is a future that we're headed, and it's mind-blowing that we're here already. And so just got to keep looking to the future. So I definitely want to thank you guys for your time. If you guys have any questions, please go ahead and type it in there and I can answer them as best I can. But I know I was all over the place.
No, I think it's awesome. I think a lot of people are blown away by what's possible already. And I'm seeing a lot of comments to the effect of saying it's almost like it's already right at our doorstep, or it's already here in different fashions. And now how do we iterate on that? I know, thinking through personally, like when I think of augmented reality, like people like Apple have done so much on the software side of things. And what will that look like now as we move from devices where you have things in a handset or a tablet, as opposed to something where it's like glasses that are on, or something, you know, more accessible in different ways. So I think it's really cool. I don't see any questions there, you know, in the chat at the moment, if people have any, but, you know, I want to thank you for this presentation. I think it was really useful to get a sense of what's possible out there, and, you know, how virtual can mean different things to different people in different contexts. And it's not one particular thing. It's not one device. It's not, you know, one piece of software and that kind of thing, for sure.
Yes, I really do want to stress that.
Somebody did have a question. They said, if you're new to all this, where do you start?
Where do you start? Ooh, that is a good question. I would definitely start with Google Cardboard. If you want to get with a sense of what virtual reality is, it's not that, I think we're long past it's being a gimmick. It's not a gimmick. It's something that's here to stay. And looking at Google Cardboard, Google Expeditions, you can get us, there are people that do tours of different locations. And so you yourself make your own Google Cardboard. They have templates online. You can create them on a Amazon box, or on any cardboard box really, and make your own headset, and then you can launch the app, and then you can pop your glasses in there and then experience it. You don't have to buy. I don't know what that is.
Sorry about that. I think I may have killed your video for a second there.
Alrighty. So, okay. Yeah, no, Google Cardboard, Google Expeditions, to, you know, you make your own Google Cardboard device, and then experience it. Try and see, with Google Expeditions, there's lots of tours of different museums and different historical spots, because I will say arranging field trips is so hard. Oh, and there's so much logistics. So with virtual expeditions, we can go on a virtual field trip, so you can get the experience of what it is to be there. And so trying to look at that and really experience it is something that is important. But, you know, it's taking them out of just reading a textbook or reading a book. If you want to talk about a book, why don't you go to the location where it's featured? Why don't you maybe build a virtual set and have your students participate in that, have them build it, and then make a presentation. Guarantee you there's a bunch of things with Shakespeare you could probably do. Yeah, I mean, you could do a read aloud if you are in a Zoom meeting. I saw someone do this. They did like a scene from Hamlet, and she assigned different people different characters, and then they were started to read them on Zoom. It gives a lot of chance, instead of you being the teacher, it's you facilitating the learning being done by your students, so that the students themselves can teach their peers. Because I do feel that peer-to-peer learning is very powerful, especially in this day and age where, you know, social communication can happen right on a time. Like right now, even though I'm teaching and lecturing, there's a back channel, there's a chat going on. I guarantee you it's happening when you're teaching online, when you're doing a Zoom meeting or a Google Meet. I guarantee you your students are talking with each other. Whether you can see that communication is completely different, because they're on their phones, maybe they're texting, maybe they are on Discord, they're all communicating, and they're probably telling you, gosh, he has some messy hair, not even listening to what you're saying if you're doing a live meeting. But really looking at all the different aspects that our students are trying to connect with each other, because they can't do so in a classroom, in a face-to-face setting right now. So they've been trying to find ways, and they've been very creative and innovative. And I think that really lends itself to the resilience of students.
Very cool. Well, we've got to wrap things up, but I want to thank you one last time for this presentation. For folks interested in more virtual stuff, we'll have a session tomorrow on Minecraft at 10 o'clock. And I also mentioned in the comments about Chromebooks. And so Bill Schmachtenberg is going to be doing a session on 3D web worlds and Chromebooks tomorrow at 1 o'clock as well. So be sure to check that out. Thank you again, Vasily, Blue, or whatever you want to call you. Appreciate it. And thank you so much. We appreciate it.